Hi there. You've reached Why We Are Christians. Thank you for being with us. My name's Stephanie Erickson, and I'm your host today. We will be talking to Zelma Loseke. Zelma is an artist and a writer. We're Skyping with her today, and we're so happy, Zelma, that you're with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight, a privilege, and I'm so pleased to be able to share my story with you. Thank you.
Well, let's dive right in. So tell us a little bit about where you were born, your early family life, and a little bit about your parents and any early religious education that you have.
Well, I was born in the Midwest, so that means that they were Lutheran and there was a solid family nucleus. But there was some type of desire on I believe my mother's part to sell the farm and move west. So they did. And as soon as she came to California, I was about 6, 7 years old. So she became a Mormon. She left my father. And I lost ties to him. So I didn't really have anything to do with my father when I was about 7, 8 years old. And Mormonism became the lifestyle. I had a younger brother, and so we grew up moving every year because my mother wanted to sever ties with all family, father, grandparents, all of that. She was a teacher, so she held a job and was a responsible person in that way. But the reasoning for not maintaining ties to family can't really be explained at this point. So we went through Mormonism until I was 18, and but we went to Hawaii when I was about early high school. So I lived in Hawaii, and all of the communes were there, and all of the hippie days. This was the late 60s, early 70s that people were migrating to the Hawaiian Islands, and they were looking, for their guru, their guide, that whole revolution, the sexual revolution was coming in, and radical feminism was moving on, and so we were the vanguard for the trial of this lifestyle of looking into yourself for your wisdom and raising your kids alternatively. It had a lot of selfish aspects because kids had no family ties. Their parents were really involved with the drug world, and so they were left to devise family tribes by themselves, little units that moved around, and they had to take care of themselves while their parents were engaged in alternative experiences of whatever nature, marijuana, LSD, acid, that whole thing.
And was that true for you and your parent or your mother? Was she into that as well?
Well, I left her when I was 18, and I went with the first man that looked at me, which was a 21-year older. He was 21 years older than I, and he was an occult. He was into the occult. That would mean that anything that had like a guide, it's like a supernatural kind of experience. People were looking for that through drugs. Well, they're also looking for that in the occult world. So there's guides, and there's Course in Miracles, there's the Urantia book, there's Conversations with Raj, who is someone you could go to a workshop or have actual private conversations with. He would speak about your personal guide, and Conversations with Raj was actually he professed to be Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So there's a lot to say about that world, but I left my mother dramatically and went with him into this commune world, into Hawaii, the island of Kauai and Molokai, where everybody were smoking pot and reading the Urantia book or the Course in Miracles and trying to figure the world out through these routes, and Jay-Z Night and Ramadan, all of those alternatives were big.
Did you find that appealing? Were you looking for something that you were trying to fill?
Well, like all young women who have had breakdowns in family and they're looking for love in the wrong places, and they're attached to the hip with these men. They can't see things clearly, so they're not objective. I personally was not involved with the drug world at all, because I wanted to be a stable presence for the 2 children that I had. I had them young. My firstborn, I've had 3 home births. All 3 were pretty much with no one there. But that's another story. So I had my kids at home, and I wanted to I wanted to be a present mom and available to my kids versus take the alternative, selfish, which is to not be aware of them at all. So right. I enjoyed having children, but my former was very unavailable.
So was the man who was 21 years older than you the father of your kids?
Yes.
Okay. And so how long did you guys stay together?
I stayed with him 21 years, and there's a lot to that story that's not appropriate to speak about other than the guide that I was channeling at that time. Now, this is really satanic. The guide world, the alternative occult world with their various roots you're really speaking to the demonic realm. This is not Jesus you're talking to. This is an impersonator, an imposter. It's what the Bible refers to as, demonic realm. They know us. They know all about us, as you know.
When you were channeling, did that require you to sort of go into a trance state before you would start to channel?
Well, my mother is a Mormon. Now, I'll go back to just Mormonism and for a moment, because Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, was into astrology. He was into the, like all cult people, they profess to be the conduit for the divine messages, and of course the golden plates and all that. But just to be sure that you understand, Mormonism has an occult aspect to it. Joseph Smith was involved with astrology and all of that kind of occult world. And my mother had books in the house by Ruth Montgomery, and she, of course, and Arthur Ford were into speaking with those, and Edgar Cayce, that
right.
realm.
Yes.
That's another realm that is similar in that you're speaking to. You're not speaking to the dead. That's an impossibility. Christ says no. There's warnings of all kinds in the Bible related to that. But so that was there, and there were Ouija boards and all that stuff. My mother, was probably what you would call somebody who was exploring all these worlds. So that the material was there. I read it, and it wasn't that hard for me to go into the next phase, which was, seeking out, like Oprah does, justifying all these routes that are available for us to explore.
Well, I'd asked you if a trance was required before you started to do the channeling.
Well, it came about, we went to, we were involved with the Course in Miracles, and Helen Schuchman is the so-called conduit for that. And it's like a book that was channeled, like the Urantia book, Urantia book, and so it was through automatic writing.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I explored automatic writing, and through automatic writing, which was like Ruth Montgomery and all of those people that are into that direction.
So it's sort of automatic writing sounds like it's sort of something else takes over your hand, kind of like on the Ouija, sort of like the Ouija board thing, but this is actual writing. Gotcha.
It really
Okay.
does. So I had daily contact whenever I wanted it, every day. I
Wow.
have journals, and I'm going to make a movie about this. It's a very interesting part of my life that I want to, because there's going to be a lot of delusion. There's the UFO movement, which is where we were eventually ending up too, is the whole UFO movement, Ashtar Command. It's not, I mean, there was the harmonic convergence in 1986. We were out in Sedona, Arizona, with all the people on the big mesas waiting for the UFOs to show up.
Really?
We were there with the Raj workshop. Raj channeled through this personality individual. I hesitate to mention his actual name, but anybody who's into conversations with Raj would know who it is. So he and his workshop were there in Sedona, Arizona. That would be in August of like 1987 or something like that, 86.
So this whole occult channeling thing sort of got into the UFO realm because they were thinking that these spirits were going to come to Earth. Is that how it connected, or?
There's the idea that Satan can take any form he wants.
Right.
So if you have UFOs as a way to mesmerize the populace, like to make some huge supernatural statement, that would be a way to do it. Yes. And there's a lot of people that would totally buy it.
Got it.
And so I painted canvases of, I have 5, they're actually they were like 6 foot, 5 by 6 feet. So it's gigantic. It's almost 57 feet of canvas. 6 of these panels. It's a mothership. And I was getting like all of this information about size, color, where they were, like all of this. So I painted it, drew it. I have 100 drawings of this stuff. It's like, it was visual. It was not auditory, but it was automatic writing. And I wrote a book. I wrote 57 songs. I did 100 drawings of this stuff. I did paintings of it. It's all ready to be filmed.
Wow. Okay, so he was abusive. Let me just interrupt you for a second. He was abusive and you decided to leave him. But before we get to the Christian radio segment, I wanted to explore something else you said. And that was about Oprah. So when you refer to Oprah, tell me, how do you mean? I mean, it doesn't seem to the normal person who's watching Oprah that she's into the occult, but how would you classify that?
Well, she embraces all roots.
Gotcha.
She doesn't deify Christ. He is our Lord. He deserves the honor and glory of being identified as the singular, like, Savior, Lord of Lords, King of Kings. We all bow to him with our will. And so all these other roots are to make him, to demean him, to make him like one of every other teacher, good man out there, and not to bring his his divine nature, give it the glory that it is so due.
Gotcha. So you would say, so it was so New Age. I mean, that's sort of a New Age thought, is all roads lead to nirvana or whatever you want to call it, to heaven, but there are many routes to get there. And that certainly goes against our belief as Christians.
It is, because it's all old age. It's nothing new under the sun, as Solomon said. It's the old age coming, just recirculating. And for the times when people are throwing any type of Christianity out, well, it's a vacuum. It's going to be filled with something. It's everything that's, is filled when there's a vacuum. If
Yeah,
by
I hear
something.
you. That's absolutely true. So, okay, so you had left your husband of 21 years, and where did you go? Were you still in
I
Hawaii, or where did
just,
you go?
well, we came east. We were like all these, people that are transient. And I was used to a transient lifestyle and, just living on the edge. And so we decided when we were in Hawaii, well, we'll just go to California. And then from California, we went to the Midwest. And he had a teaching background. He was an artist. He, in his own right, had sculpture ability. But he wasn't a stable, individual. But at the same time, he taught when we moved finally east to Vermont, where I now reside. We moved around a lot. Finally, he got a teaching position, and there was the first stability. But like anything, I now see it as you have to leave these things that are so that they're not safe, they're not healthy.
You don't,
so
yeah, you don't see a lot of it until you actually get away from it for a while, right? Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, we don't know how unhealthy we are.
Yeah, that's true.
So I didn't take anything, and I, like so many women who are in this position, we leave and we start new lives. It's very difficult because there's no support, but I was always looking for God. It's like putting your hand up, like in a pit, and you have your hand up, and you're like looking for God to just like pull you out of some place that you're in. You don't know how to do that. You're lost. But I still had my hand up looking for Christ. The fact that Raj claimed to be Jesus, he was, and that I was looking for Jesus, but I just, I wasn't raised because Mormonism says Jesus was a created being versus divine. So that's the heresy in Mormonism. So I left, and then I started working. I worked as an LNA and nursing, and that's actually, it's a wonderful profession because when you're in the art world, it's all about you. It can become rather narcissistic. Mm-hmm. So moving out of that world where you would make these claims like you're special, you have, this idea that's faulty about yourself. So I moved into the actual world of serving. And like Christ put his towel around his waist and he washed the feet. And he lived in the muck of the world. And so being an LNA, which is licensed nursing assistant, was like the bottom of the heap. But it brought humility, and it was an actual blessing and a requirement to understand that God provides. You're a nothing. You are, about serving and caring like the model that Christ was. So I count it fortunate that I went into this work of hospice and caring for the elderly, which I deeply love. And
that's great. And I totally get what you're saying. So that's a really good point.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit. You referred to Christian radio before. What's that all about?
Well, God in his great mercy got me out of the occult and away from that whole world, which what my husband was into, severed that. And I went to work and I had to drive, an hour one way. And I got so tired of the secular options, music, talk, whatever. And I just would always be flipping through these channels. Like, is there something interesting? Like, I was always looking, the seeker. And I started to hear, these at night and during the day, some, but primarily at night, these wonderful speakers. And I can recite them all. I mean, there's John MacArthur at the primary, and then there's R.C. Sproul, and there's Dallas Seminary, Chuck Swindoll, and Dave Platt, and all of those guys. They're just, Moody Bible Institute radio programs. They're just out there. And I started to hear it, and it was so like a cup of water to somebody who's been in a desert walking around for forever just looking for like food. I needed nourishment. I was an emaciated, starving, dried up, just needed like the love of Jesus. And who else is the best advocate for women out there? Listen to this one. It's Jesus. Who is our greatest advocate? Who loves us? Jesus.
That's
he
true.
Is it. So he took my hand and he led me out of the wilderness and to I just had an insatiable appetite for his word. I started listening to it. I went to a Baptist church. I started hearing. I had a wonderful preacher. Let's see, his first name is John. Why can't I think of his last name? Because I'd love to give him credit right now. They were marvelous. Anyway, they were Calvinists and they were Dallas Seminary people, and I just loved them, and they brought me the word. And I was baptized in 2009. So I was born in 53. I'm born again in 2009.
Wow,
Praise
that is so
God.
cool. So Christian, what a wonderful testament to Christian radio.
Right? Oh, absolutely. And I support them. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so you, did it seem like a foreign language to you when you first started listening to Christian radio?
Well, think about it. I'm like these nuns and other people, they've never had an encounter with the living God, the Christ, and the Bible. And it's like the dead. This is why I believe in, when the election. You must teach the actual Bible, the living word. You must speak it, proclaim it, because those people that we will call the cemetery, the living, walking dead in the cemetery, when they hear the living word, it's an alive. And you hear that, it's like saying, Zelma, walk, and you get up and you move up. It's not like you don't know your name, because Christ knows us, and when we hear his voice, know his name. So we rise out of that dead cemetery, and he gives us the life, and we move, we walk. And because of that, once I became a believer, it radically changed my life. And I went to Israel the next year, love Israel, so much to say. And I went with Moody Bible Institute. Charlie Dyer was my bus captain, and for 8 hours, for 10 days, I learned Hebrew, that we went through archaeology. We went through, it was like if we went to En-Gedi, we knew all about En-Gedi. We didn't just park there and say a nice place. We know all about, the Masada and everything. It was a fabulous learning experience. And then I found the Tomorrow Clubs. It's a missions group. They're Baptists, and we go, and from like 2010 until now, for the last 7 years, I've been going with them 2 countries in the summer for 10 days or 15, and preach the gospel we went into Russia. I've been into like 10 countries now in these 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
So Stephanie, it's go. The Lord says, go, serve, proclaim, and impact. Give the glory to God. I mean, you don't even think about your life. It's like what you must do. It's like God puts it in us, and we must go and serve.
You have so much fire. You have so much fire. I was going to say enthusiasm, but it's more than enthusiasm. You really have a wonderful fire about you. So it's really exciting. And you know what? It's contagious, Zelma. And do you find that?
Contagious love. You're the love. You're just looking at yourself. Contagious love.
And that's what Jesus said, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he said he is love, and we're just sharing his love. And the more we share it, the more we have to share. Do you find that true?
Yes, because you're absolutely, when you said the word contagious, I mean, it's infectious. When it's contagious, it spreads. It's infectious. Your smile's infectious, Stephanie. I want to smile right back. So,
okay, we're going to have a love fest here. So let's keep going on with your story.
It's all about Jesus, so we're loving him.
That's right. So you you got baptized in '09. How wonderful that you were able to go to Israel a year later. I still haven't been to Israel. It's on my bucket list. I want to go so bad. So
you will just drop everything. You will drop your nets. It's like when Christ says go, you go how? And it doesn't matter because your life is in his hands. So I drop my nets. Like if you think I can leave my farm and just go on an easy trip to like into Russia, into these like remote areas, it's like a big deal to drop your nets, but we can't have any idols. There's no, I mean, everything can become an idol. Our family, our farm, my husband, I love him. And I got remarried to a fabulous guy. I just love him. He's not a believer yet, but that's God's business.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right.
You know, Stephanie, when you look at the world, I am a representative of what the belief of Christianity is all about, to his world, to his friends, to his huge world. And what does that look like? Because Bert is a great guy. He was born, I mean, he had polio when he was young, and then he had a car accident, so his back, you know, he lived through that, but he has some consequences, physical, you know, injury to his back, his spine, and now he has Parkinson's. So what does Christianity do? It's to love when you don't, like when we're all going to have gravity affect us, and it's not, what is true love? It's this, when you don't look your best. Right. So I'm a testimony in his world of what Christianity is. I mean, I count myself totally fortunate to be in that.
That's fabulous.
Loving him. He's a wonderful man.
Well, it sounds like Bert is a pretty lucky guy, too.
Well, praise God. Thank you. I have to always point the finger up.
That's right.
To him.
That's right. Well, this is good. We're kind of winding down on this section because we're starting to run out of time for this part A of your story. So I think we've done a really good job of covering, you know, what God rescued you from.
Oh, indeed. And now I have a rescue farm.
And now you have a rescue farm. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about in the next segment is, you keep referring to a farm, so we want to know about the farm. We want to know about the rescue farm, and we also want to know about the art. So stay tuned. Zelma Loseke, it's been fabulous to talk to you. We are looking forward to the next episode of Why We Are Christians. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for being with us.